All right, man, this is cool. I just started rolling. Got my guy Kyle Lamb in here. Kyle, we haven't talked on a microphone together since pre-COVID, believe it or not.
Gosh, it's crazy. It's been that long. I mean, even for me, I was telling you, I don't think I've dusted off my mic in like 5 years at least. So this is it was due for usage. So I'm glad we were able to get this out and do it like old times.
Yeah, no, this is a good time to do it, right? Because like obviously like off season's here and there's like a lot of like discourse on the timeline about like Leerfield and about like, Ohio State's NIL stuff. And it's funny because like when the portal opens up, dog, like you see kind of guys only go one way to start. And when those guys go one way, like the people, on the side of, that on the side of anxiety, panic, like, oh no, like, Ohio State's not doing the right things. Like, what's going on? Like, is the money the issue? What about the foundation? What about Cardell Jones? And my take on it with Tyler, from what I've been able to learn, obviously, like we both gather information. One of the things I was able to learn is that, like, okay, like Ohio State is choosing to pay guys that they know are proven commodities instead of paying guys for what they could become. And one of the efforts is, that it happens in large part because you are trying to stay beneath the salary cap, the soft cap. And I think that you said maybe you disagreed and you think that one of the things that Ohio State is trying to do is make sure they abide by all the rules. And I assumed that you meant from the clearinghouse. So for those who don't know, the way that NIL works right now is that there is a clearinghouse. When these athletes get these deals, it has to go to the clearinghouse and then it has to get approved. And then from there, they play ball. Now, I believe what Kyle is referring to, and I'll let you clarify, is that you think that Ohio State is not offering deals that wouldn't get cleared by the clearinghouse pretty quickly or aren't above the clearinghouse market value. And because of that, maybe they're falling behind. And correct me if I'm misinterpreting what our kind of back and forth on the timeline was.
No, and and this is actually really important for the crux of our discussion because I think like probably 90% of this you and I think see eye to eye on. I think the genesis comes from what Ohio State is looking at. This is you've got two components, right? I think people listening kind of are learning this NIL stuff like we all are as
in
we
real
go.
time. Yeah, we're all learning it in real
Right.
time. Like I do a ton of research. I know you do a ton of research. And to me, I still feel like I am one drop in the bucket knowledge wise.
Yeah, so I think it's important for people to understand there are two aspects when they hear NIL. Sometimes these two aspects get lumped together. There's the rev share, which schools now, as part of the House settlement, can actually offer, and the number right now is 20.5 million per school.
Yeah.
That's going to go up every year, but right now it's 20.5 million per school. Now that's not football only; that's the whole institution wide.
Now,
Right.
most places are going 18 for football, right? The places that are big dogs, from what I've been able to
Yeah,
gather.
correct. We've heard some different numbers. I honestly, if you look traditionally like Ohio State, a lot of schools like Ohio State in the past have attributed football expenses as roughly about 66% of their budget.
Okay.
I expected that they would come in just a little over that number for this. Probably more like 70, 75%, 80%. And of course 18 million would put us in that range, right? And so it varies from school to school. There is no definitive, it has to be this number. It's 20.5 million right now, but schools can do 100% of that for football if they want. They can do 10% for football if they want, or they can do something in between. And I think you're right. I think most schools probably are in the 15 to 18 million range. It's going to take some time for some of these state records requests for public institutions, for I think aspiring reporters that want to find out that number. They can, but we're just going to treat this like, just for the sake of discussion, we'll say 18 million because we don't really know. But
yeah,
there's 18 million rev share, and that's what the school can legally offer no matter what. They don't need approval through the clearinghouse. They don't need approval through anybody else. They can just go to
that 18 million is not NIL dollars. That's the revenue sharing.
Correct. Yes.
Contract.
And now, so that's the first component. The second component is NIL. Now that is what. Okay, so we have to kind of do a reset. What you've heard from NIL for the last 4 years is not really NIL. That was just schools, and they weren't supposed to be doing this. It was kind of the Wild West, but it was schools basically saying, we'll give you $3 million to come play for us.
Right.
That was never the spirit or the intent of NIL. but that's what it became, right?
And that was no surprise. Like Kyle, like we knew that as soon as we got here, we knew that was going to be the case, right? Like that's
correct.
not a surprise. It's not a surprise that it happened like that.
Right, because the NCAA kicked their feet up and just wasted time for the last 10 years when we all knew this was coming because they didn't address this ahead of time proactively. Then the states got involved and let athletes do their own NIL deals within each state, and so now the NCAA is trying to play catch up with Congress and try to get them to cover their butts because they didn't do this proactively. So yeah, it's not a surprise that is how it worked out. But you have, of course, the rev share and you have NIL. Now, with the House settlement effective this year, NIL is what you actually think it should be: name, image, likeness rights to the athlete. And what that basically means is you can go get a third-party endorsement deal, but it has to be a legitimate business offering money for a legitimate business purpose. Right. So even though schools are kind of getting around the rules here, and this is another thing that you and I will talk about here as we discuss this, schools can actually help arrange NIL deals legally through the House settlement rules and the CSC, the College Sports Commission. They're allowed to do that, but they're not allowed to make promises. What they're allowed to do is either help them cut the deal or say, this is what we think we can get you with NIL, but they're not allowed to make promises. And so with NIL, it's like you can go get a third-party endorsement. Like, for instance, and this is something we'll discuss also, if Leerfield wants to help Jeremiah Smith get a deal with Gatorade, which I think he has. I think that's one of his endorsements, if I remember correctly.
Gatorade and Adidas are the two major ones.
Right. And so that's allowed. Ohio State can tell Jeremiah Smith, hey, Leerfield thinks we can get you this Gatorade deal. That's perfectly legal. And so it is supposed to be a legitimate business offering money for an endorsement. Now, that's okay, but you have some schools, not shockingly, like trying to get around this rule by offering inducements in writing, even in some cases, because they don't think it's going to be enforced, as part of their NIL agreements on top of rev share. And that's where the crux of the issue comes with Ohio State, is because Ohio State is going to Leerfield and letting them handle their third-party deals. Leerfield does not want to break the rules. So Leerfield is basically saying, here's what we think we can get you, the type of endorsements we think we can get you. But they're not going to put it in writing. They're not going to guarantee it. But you've got other schools, and I want to say LSU did this, but I don't remember who it was. I probably shouldn't say a school since I don't remember. But I did see one deal reported, and I was thinking it was the Brennan Sorsby recruitment when he went in the portal, where there was a third-party marketing deal on top of the rev share agreement, where basically this was a third-party marketing company just guaranteeing like $3 million, right, for NIL. But this wasn't a specific endorsement for any one company. They were basically saying, hey, we're going to give you $3 million and we'll go find the endorsements for you later, and then they can pay us. Now, I can tell you right now, reading the rules, that to me is not in the spirit of what the CSC rules actually say on NIL.
But I believe
that's what's happening.
I believe that's technically legal, though, right? Because here we go. This is from Ross Dellinger. Many schools are using the MMR partners, Leerfield, PlayFi, JMI, etc., as ways to exceed the revenue cap, redirecting sponsorship dollars to rosters or raising new dollars for athletes. Financial offers to athletes offered include the revenue sharing figure plus the NIL numbers. And the way I'm interpreting this report from Ross Dellinger is schools are selling a portion of their NIL rights for, the blanket athletes and letting them, go secure deals. And I thought that was legal, and that's why we've seen a large portion of schools doing it. And if you're Ohio State, it's like, are you putting rules in place for yourself because you believe that the spirit of the rule is not the actual rule? And that's where I'm at, because I feel like Ohio State is willing to let Leerfield go secure big deals for guys if they feel like it is their market value. And for certain guys, like, they're determining market value, which is the hindrance.
Well, Ohio State and Leerfield at least think that they are doing it the legal way. That's what they think. That's why Leerfield put out that statement a few days ago.
Yeah, so the Leerfield statement a few days ago, if you're not looking at the screen, Leerfield, the largest multimedia rights holder in college Sports distributed Friday an email to school clients providing clarity on its role in NIL, emphasizing that while it issues interest letters to prospective athletes, it does not guarantee athletes NIL compensation. So I believe that, honestly, I think Ohio State was one of the big schools that wanted Leerfield to send this out for clarity, because while other schools, maybe with PlayFi, maybe with one of these other third-party things, were offering like full guarantees, one of the things that I think Ohio State was struggling with is because it's Leerfield and not one of these other entities, and Leerfield is going to follow the quote-unquote spirit of the rule, they're not going to offer the guarantees that maybe that people believe that some other third-party marketing agencies are offering. Now, with that being said, that kind of straps Mark Pantoni's hands a little bit, because I have heard that Mark Pantoni is ahead of the negotiation, but it straps his hands because, like, if you're dealing with a school that has a third-party marketing agency that is guaranteeing what they can get you, and you go to Ohio State and they're like, well, we think we can get you around number X, that is going to be something that scares away athletes.
Right. And you're absolutely right about that. And that is the crux of the issue is what Ohio State and Leerfield doing. Is that the legal way? Some of these schools that are, like we mentioned, they're going out and they're guaranteeing these NIL funds on the back end. And they're just, it's kind of like, and we've seen this in various walks of life.
I mean, recruiting is lying, right? Like, what are we talking about? Recruiting is lying or stretching the truth a little bit.
Correct. And part of the problem too is that they don't think that this can be enforced right now, because not all of the schools that are opting into the CSC agreement have actually signed the agreement. And so Texas Tech is a good example. Texas Tech has not actually signed their opt-in letter to be part of the NIL house settlement.
Wait, not only that, so, aren't they asking other schools not to sign it on top
correct. Of that? They are legitimately asking other schools not to sign it because they think it's not legally enforceable right now. So you've got basically schools saying, hey, look, we want to be part of this. We agree to these rules, but we're not actually going to sign the agreement. We don't want to be held to the enforcement of the rules. And that is part of the problem. And so we have this discussion of, well, is it legal to say, hey, we'll guarantee you $3 million and we'll just go find the deals on the back end for you? Is it legal to do that? Well, maybe not, but
no, Kyle, the thing is, I think it is legal. I think the enforcers of the CSC don't want it to be legal, but doesn't this feel like your classic loophole? This feels like your classic, there was a miss in kind of, here we go. In college football, you cannot ask people to follow the spirit of what the rule intends, because what has college football always been? It's been working around. So Ohio State is doing the thing where maybe they're not following the letter of the rule to the letter of the law. They're following the spirit of it, and that's my pushback. They're hindering themselves because they're following the spirit of it. Because I think these other schools feel like they're operating legally, which is why you're getting these massive, companies worth hundreds of millions of dollars to put stuff like this into writing.
Well, I would argue that if they're trying to have schools not sign the agreement so it's not enforced, then I would argue they know it's not legal. But it does come down to, and we should mention this, it is, schools cannot make any representation of an NIL deal in writing until it's approved by the CSC. By specifically NIL Go, I think is what approves it.
Yeah, this is, so I got some NIL Go data for you. If you want to talk about it, we can.
Yeah. So, but like, for instance, that marketing deal that we were talking about with Sorsby, that was not approved by NIL Go. So they're breaking the rule even by default, just because it was not actually approved. That is in writing. They are supposed to have to approve it before they can even offer it on paper, or even verbally, they can't offer it until it's been approved. And so,
I misunderstood that. I thought that once they got the deal signed, they send it over to NIL Go. You're telling me that it has to, before a school can even how does that make sense? Like, before a school can promise a deal to an athlete, they have to run the deal by Go and then go from there? Because I thought it was the other way around.
Well, keep in mind the what they're trying to accomplish is they're trying to separate NIL from rev share. So they're trying to say schools can go ahead and sign rev share agreements and pay the athletes and make that representation, but the NIL is meant to be separate from enticements and inducements to go to the school, because that's the thing. CSC does not want these athletes being given promises when they sign with the school, because they're basically saying, hey, look, we're giving you money to come here. And that's what they're trying to avoid. So what they want is for schools to go ahead, recruit the athletes, sign the athletes, and then on the back end when they're there, then absolutely go ahead and cash in on your name, image, likeness, and marketability. So that's what they're trying to do and that's why they're saying we don't want to let you have NIL deals verbally or in writing until they're actually approved by us. And so schools are trying to find ways to get around that. But in essence, what they're really doing is they are making inducements to come to the school. And that's what they're trying to avoid.
Okay, well, that's something that I've learned. I thought that the way this was working was that they were offering the kids the deals, and then once they get signed the deal, then they would send it over to the clearinghouse and then go from there. But you're saying that before schools can even offer a deal to a kid, they have to send it over to the Go office. And now here's
That's correct. Absolutely. Like if Ohio State wants to take $1 million out of their revenue sharing to offer a kid, they're allowed to do that.
Right. No, I know that, but I'm just talking about the NIL side of it. The rev sharing thing to me is really easy. Like that's just basic cap. I understand that. I think a lot of people do. It's like the revenue sharing is easy. It's the NIL stuff and like how Leerfield is the one sending these deals to the schools and then sending them over to the clearinghouse.
Yeah. So what Ohio State is having Leerfield do is they're sending letters to here's the type of endorsement we think we can get you. Here's about the value we think we can get you. They're not making any promises. And they're not giving specific endorsements usually. Now, if they can come up with a specific endorsement for an athlete, they're allowed to do that, as long as it's a legitimate deal that they know they can get ahead of time. Like if they go negotiate with McDonald's or something for an athlete and can get that in writing because it's finalized, then they're allowed to do that. But they're not allowed to make promises unless they have it specifically in writing with that particular company or whatever.
Okay.
And so... but what's happening is the schools are going ahead and lumping in some of these NIL deals, even though like you've got schools like Ohio State with Leerfield, they're just sending out letters. Here's typically what we think we can get you. And that's the difference. And so Ohio State is treating it like they think is the rule. Other schools are trying to bypass that and lump it in with the initial deal that they sign.
So that would check out something that I've heard in regards to like agents and communications versus because I'm being told pretty clearly that Ohio State is not offering market value to a lot of these players, especially players that haven't really played a lot, that are on their quote unquote playing year. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But what I'm being told is that like some kids are being offered, $200,000 by school B, and Ohio State only wants to pay them $90,000, and they're like, hey, like they go to Ohio State, like, hey, like how much can you guarantee me? And it's like, hey, look, we could pay you, 90, but we think we can get to this amount if you end up becoming a player. And
right.
So I think that likely could be because, okay, like if you end up being a player, your Leerfield deal could be worth a lot more. But right
that's
now,
right.
our rev share deal is $90K. And so I think that's the tricky thing because I do know schools are likely offering, $300,000, $400,000 for a player at Ohio State that's not playing, and it's like, well, where's that deal coming from? Because Mark Bantoni might be only operating with the concrete rev share numbers and then kind of the abstract Leerfield numbers.
That's absolutely right, okay. And that's exactly what's happening, and that's why it's like I think you and I agree on most of the rest of the stuff, but I understand where Ohio State's coming from because they're saying we're not allowed to offer you this in writing or verbally. We're just not allowed to do it because we don't know for sure what it's going to be.
And for me, man, here's the thing, Kyle. When you drive on the highway, do you drive 65 miles per hour in a 65?
Well, no. And look, this is where you and I agree. Like I'm not saying I agree with Ohio State doing it this way. I understand where they're coming from, though.
I think process-wise, just real quick, just to end our disagreement, I think process-wise, where we disagree is I think Ohio State is offering kids below market value because that's what they think is within the spirit of the rule. And it may be, and that's fine. So I think, like, for me, it's like, okay, like, Ohio State is offering well below market value instead of offering a kid what they could become. And I think college football has always been about selling kids' dreams. Right or wrong, that's always what it's been. You sell them the dream of winning the Heisman. You sell them the dream of making it to the playoffs. You sell them the dream of being developed in the NFL. And somewhere along the way, Ohio State stopped selling the dream and started almost being harder on kids, saying, look, you're not a great player yet, so we're going to pay you like you're a bad player. And I think that is where the crux of our disagreement is.
you're not wrong that that's what kids are going to hear.
Yeah.
It's not what they intend, but that's what they're hearing.
And it's more
Because
nuanced than that. It is more nuanced
right,
than that.
if the University of Texas is going to a kid and say, we can get you $3 million. That's based on, well, it may not be based on anything. Maybe they're just saying we'll get you $3 million. But Ohio State says, well, we can definitely get you 1.5 million, but we think we can get you up to 3 million. In the kid's mind, they're hearing Ohio State being waffling and being cheap and not paying what the rest of the market is paying. In reality, that's just Ohio State saying we're not allowed to tell you that for sure because we don't know. And other schools are not worried about that. And they say, well, we'll get you 3 million. And really all they're doing is saying, yeah, we'll worry about that later. We'll figure it out. We'll get 3 million somehow.
Okay.
But it hasn't been approved yet. So they can't actually make that representation.
Well, then let me ask you like in an applicable range, because this is where I hear you and I agree with you, and I think we're really close, Kyle. What I do think though makes it a little bit murkier for me, makes me feel like Ohio State maybe is being cheap, is when you hear Berman Austin, who we all know are mouthpieces of the university. You hear them come out and essentially say Ohio State's not going to be bullied by Bo Jackson, and running backs aren't worth that much money, and they're not worth the market. If they came out and kind of gave this take right now about it's more about the clearinghouse, it's more about Leerfield and kind of language they have to use, I think that's an easier one to sell the fan base. Why is state media coming out and essentially pretending like it's a complete level playing field, and yet Bo Jackson is asking for way too much money after going for 1,000 yards as a freshman?
Yeah, it's poor messaging. I
Okay.
agree with that. And look, I would say,
because here we go, Kyle. That makes it easy for fans to be like, you know what, Ohio State's just being fucking cheap.
well, and part of it too is like Ross Bjork is going to come out from a CEO standpoint, and he's going to, and I don't fault him for what he's saying. I get why he's doing what he's doing, but his issues are not going to, he's not going to feel the same way about this as the coaches who are on the recruiting trail and having to talk to these kids every day and having to hear the kind of numbers being thrown around. And so Ross is not as directly involved in those discussions. And so maybe I don't think he has a great feel for what's really happening behind the scenes. I mean, I'm sure he gets told some of these stories, and I'm sure he hears things.
His job is to make sure the money's there, is what I always say.
That's right.
I think it's not his job to spend the money at all, so I never get on people for saying how he spends the money.
Well, and this is where you and I kind of agree, because me personally, I don't have a problem with the approach. I don't know if I necessarily agree with it, but I don't have a problem with them doing what they think is legal, right? And I get Learfield's point of view. I get Ohio State's point of view. Where I think Ohio State can help themselves is allow Learfield to continue to wrangle those bigger national and regional deals, but allow the foundation to come back in and build up a donor network of legitimate businesses in Central Ohio and across the state, and find some additional supplemental values with whether it's your local car dealership or restaurants or whatever. People that want to contribute to Ohio State football, bring them back into the loop, and maybe you can find, sure, it's not, I doubt that they're going to have a billionaire that's going to be able to contribute $1.5 million in a single deal, but I think you can add up, even if it's a piecemeal approach, add up a lot more NIL resources to these kids that you can quickly offer if you already have the network built out. And so if I'm Ohio State, I don't necessarily ditch Learfield, but I add in the foundation or something similar to add into that, so I have more resources at my immediate disposal.
I was gonna say, don't you want the foundation back? Because the way I'm understanding all this, and the way I'm understanding even schools that are quote unquote abiding by the rules, how they're abiding by the rules is, okay, they have to go to the clearinghouse if the university is tied to getting one of these kids a job. But if the university is not tied to getting one of these kids a job, I don't think do they have to use the clearinghouse?
Well, they're still going to have to approve any single deal anyway.
Okay, that I don't think is enforceable at all, right? Like, because like if the school's not helping put together a deal and it's just someone from the outside going to an athlete, hey, I got this amount of money for you to do this, that those deals are not going to the clearinghouse. And here we go. Here's the NIL deal flow report. Anyway, this is from NIL Go. They've cleared 17,000 deals for a total of $127 million, and they've denied 524 deals for $14.9 million. That comes out to, if it's only Power 4, and this is for college football already, that comes out to less than $2 million on average per school.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's
I mean,
I
like,
think
look,
the only
how
distinction,
that's even Ohio. Like, here we go. That even it's probably for Ohio State too. Like, that likely means that all the third party outside the university NIL conglomerates are able to kind of move freely because they don't have to abide by the rules.
Well, Chris, I just that's the point we're making. So I want you to say that number again. What's that number you just said per school?
$2 million on average per
Right.
school.
Okay, so we're talking about Ohio State, Texas. Some of these schools have roster costs this year reportedly of probably $40 million excess, right?
Yeah. So the highest that I heard this previous year was from the I mean, of course, if you care about what the Penn State AD says, it's about $35 to $40 million Texas Tech.
Right. Now, some of these are old deals that are grandfathered in, but still, if we're saying $2 million per school, and we're talking about roster costs over $40 million, when maybe $18 million of that is rev share, then what we're seeing is, in fact, a lot of these deals are being put in writing or verbally before they're actually approved. Because it's up to the player when an agreement is made. It's up to the player to go approve this from NIL Go. Okay. So, and the risk is if they get a deal that is not cleared, they risk being ineligible. So they have to, at least on paper or in theory, they're supposed to go to NIL Go with a deal that is legitimate business purpose, representing a company for an endorsement. So if I'm a billionaire like Mark Cuban, and I'm gonna point this out because the media loves this Mark Cuban story. Mark Cuban is not allowed to sponsor NIL. Mark Cuban can have endorsements for one of his companies. That is perfectly legal. And that, I'm sure that that's the way they're framing it, by the way. I mean, they're going to just say, Mark Cuban will say, yeah, this company of mine, we're going to sign an endorsement deal with that company.
Is that why it's
but
like
Mark
it's
Cuban,
like pledging this amount of advertising dollars to the university?
Right. But Mark Cuban or Cody Campbell can't just sponsor NIL. The boosters are not allowed to do that. And that was happening the last few years, but that is not permitted by the rules now. It's actually expressly prohibited in the rules. It's pretty clear.
So how do we then what is going on when these billionaires are funding rosters like we hear about? Like, what is that?
Yeah, they're probably just using one of their many companies that they own. Whether it's, who knows? It's like, maybe it's
Nike. I mean,
yeah,
I think Mark Cuban's one of the early investors in Catapult. If you
right,
think that's
yeah. I mean, the way around it is like, hey, I'm going to give you 10 million. Just figure out which players you want to be endorsed by the company, and I mean that's what they're doing in reality.
Like the Clippers,
right? But they're actually supposed to serve a legitimate business purpose. It's supposed to be old school. This is an endorsement. Hey, like I'm McDonald's. I'm paying you $2 million to represent me. It's like you're going to come out and do some commercials. Maybe make a couple of appearances this year. That sort of thing. That's what it's supposed to be for.
Okay.
In reality, we know that's not how it's working, but that is how it is supposed to work.
So something that I think is crazy is 97% of NIL deals have been approved, but only 89% of the deal volume has been approved. And I'm wondering, like, you tell these kids, all right, this deal will get approved, but it has to be for less money. Are those kids are supposed to give the, go back to the company, and be like, yeah, less money on this deal. It's a funny thing, and I do wonder if we're going to start to see the ineligible players. But again, I guess I want to try to answer the question. Do you think that the University of Ohio State is falling behind right now with the NIL stuff and the rules in place?
I think a lot of that will depend on how quickly we get lawsuits and enforcement questions answered. I don't think this is sustainable longer term. I think Ohio State's either going to have to get more aggressive, or they're going to have to get an explanation on what the rules are going to be enforced. by the letter of the law, I think Ohio State is doing it correctly. Unfortunately, I don't think the letter of the law is being enforced right now, and
Well,
I
I
think
no, no,
most
I know
schools.
you think that, but I'm more worried about like are they falling behind? Because here we go. I do think Ohio State is doing a really good job in the portal right now. I think they're going to field a really, really good team next year. And the question is going to be how long are they going to handicap themselves if there is no future of enforcement, or are they just going to handicap themselves forever because that's who Doug Archie is?
I think this year it's probably I don't think they're falling behind yet, but I will say this: if there isn't a question to the enforcement by next year, I think you're going to see a lot more schools doing it the way some of the renegades are doing it.
Okay.
And if that happens, then I do think Ohio State is risking falling behind. And so I think that it's fine for right now, but if they go into next fall and nothing has changed, I really think they're going to have to rethink their strategy.
I agree. I don't know what to make of it, but one of the things I found fascinating was that schools like Virginia Tech, Georgia, Arizona, and Washington are leading the charge right now in terms of publicly encouraging colleagues to sign the CSC participation agreement. I have not seen Ohio State publicly like come out, and I haven't listened to Ross Bjork today. I do think that would be important. And this is a quote from it. Obviously, this is from Ross Dellinger, who's been on the forefront of covering this. The agreement asks for institutions to do something simple but essential: play by the rules, accept accountability when we fall short, and resolve disputes through the agreed upon process rather than prolongingly costly litigation that fuels confusion and inequity. So what they're asking is, if you don't get something you like, please don't sue. Please trust the rules, because we do know that maybe in the court of law these rules can't hold up, but let it just be, the standard in, I guess, our league.
Well, and I can't blame them. Look, I have I think what schools like Texas Tech are doing, I'm just going to say, I think it's cowardly. It's like on one hand, you're saying, yeah, we're going to abide by these rules. But on the other hand, it's like you're not actually going to sign it, so it can't be enforced. And then you're going to purposely skirt some of the rules that you agreed to. It's like you want to have it both ways. You want to say, well, we're all in favor of this, but we don't really want it to be held against us. That's why I think that they know they're breaking the rules, because I think if they weren't concerned about it, they would just sign the agreement and be done with it. But I think that they know they're not playing by the rules.
Again, like why would you why would you like have rules before everybody agreed on signing them? So that is the crazy part. It's like, is Ohio State following imaginary rules?
Right. Well, that's fair too. And there are some people that don't think it's actually a legally binding agreement right now because it hasn't been signed by everybody. So it's just like, I mean, what's a good example? Like one of those UN charters. It's like they basically say it's like, if everybody adopts it, then it's legally binding. But if not everybody signs it, then it's not. So, and I
I
think
mean,
that's
we
probably
could take it to something even more simple, dog. Like if we get on Facebook and we're all talking about, all right, if we drive down, I-70, let's make sure we're going the speed limit of 60 miles per hour. Who's with me? My brother in Christ, if I have a Ferrari, I'm driving 90 down it.
right, right.
Like, until I see that sign change and we all agree and it's all set, sign, sealed, delivered. Like I'm not going to abide by imaginary rules,
Right. No, that's fair. Ohio
especially in
State
a
might be,
competitive field.
yeah. No, look, I'm with you. I think Ohio State is correct in the most technical sense,
Mm-hmm.
but I also think at this point, if other people are not going to do it that way, if they're not going to do it the right way, if that's what we're going to call it, then I would like to see Ohio State be more aggressive. And I just think for right now, the way to do that, yeah, I'd bring in the foundation, and you're not going to be able to get as many big time deals, but I think with the piecemeal approach, you can really string together some immediate help with some of these guys,
Well,
and I
and
think
and
it
the
would
and the
help.
foundation builds you depth too. I think
Right.
that's really important. Like, let Leerfield go take care of your superstars.
Well,
Let the
and I think
foundation.
it's important to note also that the last few years the foundation has been looking for donors, and now the way to do it is not to look for donors. You're looking for business owners, and
Deals,
and I
yeah,
think
businesses.
it's important to do that way. But other than that, yeah, it's like I think you can string together a large network of business owners around the state and come up with some of those funds.
Yeah, like to give you depth, right? Like
Right.
like
Absolutely.
if the foundation is operating the way you want them to with a lot of businesses, then you likely keep guys like Bryce West and Aaron Scott, who just like had to leave because they were being offered double and triple what they got offered by Ohio State.
Well, and I, gosh, I mean, you think back. I mean, if you look at an Ohio State media guide, I mean, for years they've touted, "Hey, this is our donor circle, right?" And
Yeah.
this is like the Gold Club, or I forget what they call it, but they've always called out a certain level of donor to the university and the athletic department. I think now you can expand that, make it a membership club, allow them to donate to the athletic department. But hey, this is going to give you access to our student athletes to have these players endorse your product or endorse your business or endorse your restaurant,
Yeah.
whatever. And just make it like a club and let them in the circle and let them have a chance to do these endorsements. It's going to help the university and the athletic programs. It's going to help the student athlete. It's going to help the business owner. There's a lot of ways to do this. You just got to get creative.
And right now, the clearinghouse is operating at a better speed than they were before. Right now, 52% of deals submitted to NIL Go are resolved within 24 hours, and 73% of deals, the resolution was within 7 days as well. So they are moving a lot quicker. Before there was that issue of like kind of things getting hung up. What I will say last thing before we get out of here is that look, Ohio State should abide by the rules right now. Probably, I can concede that one to you. My next thing is you only abide by the letter of the law while you're sending out warnings. Hey, look, we're abiding by the rules right now, but if this doesn't get handled by the NCAA, by CSC, by whoever, we're going to turn up and ruin the sport. I think that would provide pressure to get things done, right? Because right now, if you are Texas Tech, well, maybe not Texas Tech, right now, if you are a school like, I don't, like, here we go. Right now, you're a school like LSU or like Alabama. Well, Alabama's been following the rules. Um, Whatever school you are, I think if you're Ohio State, you have to send the message, hey, look, like you don't want to sign the CSC thing. When we turn up, it's going to look super unfair. Then you're going to make you wish you signed it. And I hope that they kind of have that kind of flex in their back pocket, or else they're just going to be the nice guys with no danger to them.
Well, the funny thing is, we saw with the Demond Williams situation that most of the Big Ten schools are sticking together on this,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
And so,
100%. And that's why I don't think
yeah,
Miami will ever be in the Big Ten, because they keep kind of breaking and violating, and the Big Ten has kind of stood in arms with Wisconsin to start, and then with Washington, which is why when it started to come out, people were like, Oregon, Oregon, Oregon. It's like, I don't think Oregon wants to cross the Big Ten, because right now the Big Ten is letting Oregon kind of move like a big fish a little bit, and they don't want that kind of badge revoked.
well, and it's interesting because you even mentioned Alabama and Georgia appear to be also trying to do it the right way. So it's like you've got with the Big Ten schools and Alabama, Georgia, a few of the heavyweights in the SEC also wanting to do it the right way or
Well, it seems
right-ish
like the
way.
school's associated with the Leerfield Titans. Like, that's what it is.
Yeah, correct. And so I think if you have a lot of heavy hitters there, so like you said, you could flex some muscle and get somewhere, but that requires them getting together and say we're going to have to basically call our shot. We're going to have to flex a little bit, but I think if they do it, then they've got enough leverage to do so.
Yeah. Look, that's Kyle Lamb. Kyle, I don't know if you have anything to plug, man, because you're just way too big for this world now. Like, right? Like you're outside the sports world, but I'd love to have you on again to chop it up.
Nothing to plug, but yeah, we got to do this again sometime. Now that I've dusted off the equipment, I'll keep it close by, and we gotta touch base again soon.
Yep, keep it up. We'll talk. I'm Chris Drew. That's my for just real quick. Can we tell a story? And I don't want to not for too long. Kyle Lamb, in a time where I wanted to get into Ohio State media, he was the only one that gave me a shot.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, man. Those days were great. I mean, we had a lot of fun rapping on those podcasts. I mean, I did Unscripted Ohio, and then went over to Locked On and did Locked On Buckeyes for a while. But we were having a lot of fun in those days.
Yeah, man, and like it's always funny because like obviously like I got connected through Zach to you, so you caught me like really early on in my media career. Like, for example, like Kyle Lamb and I first connected way back, I believe 2019, maybe 2018. Yeah, it was 2018, and we connected because I had just gotten my first radio show solo to me, and it was called Drew's Views. Shout out Ray Horner. And I got the show, and he was one of my first guests that ended up kind of being a weekly guy to come in and talk college basketball and then all Ohio State football stuff. And from there, I learned how to be a broadcaster. And obviously, like your career took you political, and my career has kind of stayed on the same track. And now, like independent third party media, I left radio, obviously. But no, like really kind of my introduction to this world was because you gave me a shot when a lot of people wouldn't. And yeah, now I'm here. So it's always nice to have you back here. And a lot of people that know me know that like you're the reason I met Zach Smith, and obviously my career. I mean that meeting with Zach changed my life, because then he became someone to give me a shot a little bit later on when all the other big sites wouldn't. So it definitely like forever indebted to you. Now also I put the work in, like I'm a super hard worker separately, but obviously
yeah, you're crushing it, man. Like you even mentioned, like you weren't sure how much I was following from down here in Florida, but like I'm not paying close attention, but I'm paying enough attention to know that you're killing it. So I'm really happy for you, man.
That means a lot, man. I appreciate you. That's Kyle Lamb. I'm Chris Drew, and you'll hear us on a mic soon. Make sure you like and sub. This is a small channel, but we're getting there. You know, we're inching towards 10K subs, and we do it with you guys. Peace.